Breaking tonight, 24 hours until the next presidential debate as Donald Trump tries to convince voters that actions speak louder than words. Hello and welcome to Justice. I'm Judge Pirro. Thanks for being with us. You know, some damaging leaks actually affecting both campaigns tonight, and we'll get to all of it. But first, my opening statement. The comments are shameful and cringeworthy. The words are disgusting, devastating, and embarrassing. It's the kind of locker room and frat house talk that personally infuriates me. But guess what? I still, without a doubt, support Donald Trump. Look, you've got two options. A guy who admits he has a past, who spent his life building an empire in the rough and tumble world of real estate, entertainment, and television, both for and with his family, whose life direction wasn't about angling to get to the White House. Or a double-talking woman who hides the truth, lies about virtually everything, can't figure out what she did with $6 billion State Department dollars, and when confronted with the unassailable truth, arrogantly responds, "Don't believe your lying eyes." Now, I told you last week that this election is between someone who is politically incorrect and someone who is politically corrupt. And I said that there's a difference between words and action. Trump's words are horrific, but Hillary's actions have put our national security and our safety in jeopardy. Her State Department policy and decisions have created a vacuum where the men in Benghazi were killed because of her refusal to take care of those who were working for the State Department. Now, having a little trouble with the teleprompter here. Now, let me put this in perspective for you. Are you happy with the way things are? Or are you one of the 72% in this country who believe that we're going in the wrong direction? That the country is in decline and that we are in desperate need of change? And by the way, is anyone really so stunned that a flamboyant billionaire who owns casinos is capable of speaking the way Donald Trump did? But he apologized. Most people accepted it, a lot didn't. But in the meantime, America is in a mess. The jobs and the economy are a disaster. ISIS has reached our shores, and police are being demeaned and targeted throughout the country. Immigration is out of control. Border Patrol tells us that in August, a record number crossed our border. And 10,000 Syrian refugees were brought into this country. Syrian refugees about whom we know nothing. Syrian refugees big enough to create their own town. Even Bill Clinton is tired of the con.
You've got this crazy system where all of a sudden 25 million more people have health care, and then the people are out there busting it sometimes 60 hours a week, wind up with their premiums doubled and their coverage cut in half. It's the craziest thing in the world.
You know, folks, we're having a lot of trouble here tonight, so I'm going to go to my first guest, Boris Epstein. All right, Boris, I had an open that I can't seem to get on the screen here, but let me ask you this.
Sure.
The last 24 hours for Donald Trump, very difficult, or is this something that you guys expected would be coming down as part of an October surprise?
So we didn't expect it, but we did expect for the Clintons to continue to try to play in the gutter, and it's a typical move, right? They're desperate. They know we're winning because the American people want change. 76% of Americans want change.
She was ahead 2 points, you know, which I get. It's not enough for her to be comfortable.
So go ahead.
So Donald Trump has made a decision. He's staying in the race.
Of course.
No way he's getting out?
There's no way he's getting out. I spoke to him today. He's 100% committed, and this campaign is committed. And here's why. Listen, these were terrible words. I'm a father. I'm a son of a very strong woman, a grandson of a strong woman, a husband of a strong woman, and I didn't like hearing that, just like Mrs. Trump didn't like hearing it. But she has accepted his apology, and everyone else needs to as well. And let's move on. Let's move on to the issues that matter. You spoke about it in your open. Benghazi, Iran, Syria, the failed reset with Russia, China. Look at the whole spectrum of Hillary Clinton's career just as Secretary of State. Then go beyond that. Total inconsequential senator.
But wait, Boris, I know all this stuff. Here's the thing. Women are a segment that Donald Trump needs to get to win this election. Mm-hmm. This is, I guarantee you, is something that's going to hurt him.
Listen, it's going to hurt.
So how does he make up for it?
You have 30 days. You make up for it by talking about the issues that matter. Do women matter about some things said, some really comments that are disappointing, but banter from 11 years ago, or do they care about keeping their children safe? And what they care about is keeping their children safe. I know that for a fact. They care about being safe. They care about jobs. And listen, the Clintons don't have a leg to stand on here, right? We all know about their background, and I'm not even going to wade into their marriage. We all know about it. We all know about the women.
Well, it's not so much about the marriage. I mean, it's about her treatment of the women in the marriage. But how is Donald going to handle this tomorrow night?
He's going to be strong on it. He's going to be strong on the whole.
Right off the bat?
I'm expecting again, and we as a campaign are concentrated on the issues that everyday Americans care about, right? Just look at NAFTA, 700,000 jobs lost. Look at the immigration crisis, 10,000 Syrian refugees just in the last 12 months. Look at everything that's gone on in this country. It's less safe now than it was 8 years ago. 70% of people believe that. So having said that, listen, the Clintons have started this discussion. They've waded into it. So if the opportunity comes up, is Donald Trump going to address how she's treated women, how she smeared them and bullied them throughout her career?
All right, let me ask you this. This was timed. We all knew WikiLeaks was coming out.
Yeah.
This conversation that Donald Trump had with Billy Bush was 11 years ago.
11 years ago.
Now, there are those who were whispering about this a few days ago. Did Hillary Clinton wait until the WikiLeaks came out to make a decision to leak this stuff? And if more WikiLeaks is coming out, as Julian Assange is promising, can we expect that there'll be more anti-Trump comments coming out?
Listen, in 30 days, I assume the dirty Clinton politics will try to use everything they can against us because they don't want real change. They represent the Washington elite from both the Democrat and the Republican side. And let me tell you something. In my experience, I don't have respect for those that run for the hills whenever there's a sign of trouble.
Yeah, and what about those Republicans? What about Paul Ryan? I mean, what about, and I think we have a list of all of those Republicans, who either once endorsed him or endorsed him and then pulled him back or never endorsed him. What are they looking to do?
They're all American citizens, and it's their right. But what they're doing is they're ignoring the voters. The 14 million Republicans who came out for Donald Trump. There are tens of millions coming out now. Do you know what kind of emails and calls we're getting at the campaign? Stay in it, Donald. We're not electing a Sunday school teacher. We're electing a president. That's what people care about. That's what they want in their leader. They want somebody who's going to have action, who will do the right thing for this country. And, listen, are the words, again, disappointing? Yes, they are. But is that what people are going to vote on November 8th? Absolutely not.
All right. And what do you think she's going to do tomorrow night in the debate? I mean, do you think that she teed up that whole Miss Universe knowing that this language was going to be coming out and then made a decision that, it's like a cumulative effect. I'll add that on to what we already know from 20 years ago?
Well, she's pretty robotic. We know that. She's pretty scripted. So I'm sure she has some very memorized line, just like Tim Kaine did in the VP debate, that she'll try to use. But Mr. Trump's ready. He's ready, and he's going to come in there and he will show Americans once again why he's the leader we need going forward and not the same old we've had for the last 40 years.
And how do you explain to the American people that, Donald Trump clearly wasn't planning on running for this his whole life, so I'm sure there's a lot of language out there. How do you explain to the American people that words are different than actions? How does Donald do that?
Well, I think most Americans, as they look at their homes, look at their families, people use salty language, and men will be men and women will be women. And there's salty language across genders, across backgrounds.
If that's true, why are so many men horrified by this kind of language? Are they, I've never been in a men's locker room or, in a frat house. People say this is the way they talk.
Well, listen, I've been in, I played football in college. There is something to that, but that does not take away from the fact that these comments should not just be excused and go away. And I do echo what Mrs. Trump said, and what Mr. Trump said specifically, where he apologized. And you know what I thought was really great about that statement? When he said, I'm going to be a better man tomorrow. And all of us in this country should want to be better people the next day and concentrate on that and have a better day for our country the next day. But all Hillary Clinton cares about is becoming president and then, maybe getting more money for some sort of pay-to-play scandal, because that's what she's been doing throughout her career. Remember, they rented out the Lincoln bedroom, then she rented out the State Department. She wants to do the same to the whole White House. Donald Trump will not allow that to happen. All right, Boris Epstein, thanks so much for being here with us in St. Louis. And joining me now is someone with a slightly different take on the news in the last 24 hours, liberal radio talk show host Coco Sudek. All right, Coco.
Hello, Judge.
Language that we don't approve of. And certainly language that is going to hurt Donald Trump with women like yourself and other people. But don't you think that this is the kind of language that, no matter what he says, you'll never forgive him for because it's all about politics?
No, I think he's an abysmal human being. I think he's an abomination. But let's talk about what you talked about, which is actions matter more than words. So let's put his words aside. This is a man who's been sued for rape of his wife, a business associate, and a 13-year-old kid.
No,
and that's a case that's winding its way through the courts.
Coco,
he has been sued for
rape
there. 3 times.
Coco, stop.
That's actions, not words.
Coco, look, there's only one thing that I want to ask you, and that is, if I'm asking you a question and you say something that's not factual and I say stop, then we got to start all over, okay? It was a matrimonial. She withdrew that. But what about the fact that Bill Clinton is someone who actually had to pay $850,000 for taking something out of his pants and showing it to Paula Jones? And then he had an intern semen, that his semen was on an intern's dress. I mean, are you really going to go there? We're talking about language versus actions.
I will say that Bill Clinton's peccadillos were very good for Halloween costumes everywhere, but he's not on the ballot.
It's that simple.
He's not running, and I'm not voting for him.
But he gets back in the White
Hillary
House
Clinton.
if she wins.
Right, as the first spouse. Why? But is Melania responsible for Donald Trump's words and actions? Is she responsible for every bad thing this guy does?
No, she's not. And the reason Hillary is Hillary created a career in a war room to take on the women who criticized her husband. And a woman, Juanita Broderick, who claims that Bill Clinton raped her, says that she was threatened by Hillary. So, I mean, they're totally different. We're talking about a locker room conversation between two guys in television.
This isn't a locker room conversation. This is a man who boasted. He boasted about sexually assaulting women. Look, let's put that aside.
No.
The thing that is really egregious about Donald Trump, the thing that's really egregious is not his words. You know what it is? It's the fact that this guy is not a patriot. It's the fact that he has no respect for the United States or its laws. He doesn't pay taxes. He doesn't obey the law. He doesn't obey his creditors.
Let me ask you a question, Coco.
He is an irresponsible human being who should not be anywhere near the White House.
The only candidate here was investigated by the FBI for a year with over 100 agents on her case, and a Clinton Foundation, a 501c3 that they won't even look at because they've already decided she needs to be president. Don't even go there. She's lied to Congress. She lied to the American people over and over again.
Trump's Foundation isn't even registered to take donations in. Trump's Foundation.
And the Clinton Foundation is? Do you know how many European countries are looking at the Clinton Foundation? Well, let's not go there.
The Clinton Foundation is a great charity.
How is it that Hillary Clinton and her husband are responsible for 25% of our uranium being sold to Putin, who now owns 25% of the uranium in this country because of his deal through the foundation? You feel good about that, Coco, too?
I mean, I feel a lot better about anything that you're going to say than a guy like Trump, who is beholden to Putin and Putin's oligarchs, who is in the tank for this guy because he needs their money.
How is he beholden? Hillary did the reset and sold our uranium to Russia.
Oh, stop it, Coco.
That's just craziness. That's the type of talk that you guys have been pushing on the Clintons for years. The thing is, the Clintons must be the greatest criminals in history because you guys have spent billions of dollars investigating them, and you've never been able to really find a fact that is incriminating. These are great public servants. You've just made them look like horrible people all these years.
How do you become a $200 million person that when you've got no company, nothing to sell, not even a website? It's all pay to play, Coco.
I'll tell you how Trump did it. He inherited his money.
And then
he inherited his money.
And money.
No, he inherited everything.
All right, Coco, you're never going to vote for Donald.
You're never going to vote for Hillary, but she's going to be your president.
We're going to be right back with Pastor Robert Jeffers, and we'll see what he has to say. We're less than 24 hours away from what may be the most critical presidential debate of our time. So what can we expect to hear from the two candidates, especially in the wake of the news in the last 24 hours? Let's ask GOPAC chairman and Republican strategist David Avella, who joins me here in St. Louis. All right, good evening, David. Your take on the last 24 hours.
Well, we live in tabloid politics, and you either are the gossip or you're spreading the gossip. And in 3 days, we're not going to be talking about this. We're going to be talking about what happens in the debate and what each candidate said about the issues that the moderators bring up and how they're going to address Americans' concerns.
All right, so you just kind of think that this is politics as usual, but if you look at some of the other networks, this is the only thing they're talking about.
It might be the only thing they covered, but the reality is this election hasn't really moved. Each candidate always stays within a few points of one another. And despite the fact that the Clintons have now spent over $100 million attacking Donald Trump on very issues like this, and yet he's still in this race.
What is it going to take for either one of them, given the fact that you're right, it's been so close all along and they're lobbing bombs at each other, and I have a feeling this is going to keep going for the next 30 days, and whoever gets hit the last is probably going to get hurt the most. But what do they have to do to really get over that hurdle? Which one of them, and what do they have to do?
Neither one of these have a favorability ratings high enough that they're going to be the liked candidate. So it has to be the person who Americans believe is going to make their economic and their personal security better. And let me say this, Judge, given what we now know about Hillary Clinton's newest revelations about emails, we have to question who's given more national security secrets away and who's put us at greater risk, Hillary Clinton or Snowden.
Well, and clearly, you know, one of the things that was so kind of submerged in all of this latest tabloid stuff is the fact that WikiLeaks, where Hillary Clinton talks about the fact that she says one thing in private and one thing in public, and that she needs Wall Street to oversee and reform Wall Street, you know, as if we need the fox overlooking the hen house. And, you know, all kinds of things that the public is ignoring. Is it because they just think she's a liar and they know it?
Yeah, they already know she's a pathological liar who is self-serving. So it's not new information to them, just as it's not new information to people that Donald Trump has made rude and inappropriate and grotesque comments in the past. That's not new information. What voters are looking for is information to decide their vote on the issues that they care about.
All right, so why are the Paul Ryans of the world and Jason Chaffetz and a lot of these, we had a screen with all of the senators, you know, Kelly Ayotte, that's no surprise, and McCain, that's no surprise. A lot of them establishment people who never liked him in the first place. I mean, aren't they hurting their own party, or are they being smart by trying to separate from him?
Well, time will tell on that, but here's what I can tell you. The Republican National Committee is still behind him. The RNC, I was talking to officials right before we came on the air. All the plans they had for turning out Republican voters to help our entire ticket, they're still doing.
So that this rumor that we're hearing that the RNC is pulling back on Donald Trump and raising money or supporting him, that's not true?
Well, Judge, rumors happen in politics. It doesn't mean they're true.
All right, now let's talk about those who are saying Donald should drop out. There's a rule, the Republican National Committee rules, that says if he doesn't step down, and Donald Trump has indicated that he's absolutely not going to step down, that the only way things can change is if there's a vacancy created due to death, incapacity, or otherwise. What's going to happen here?
Donald Trump is the nominee. He's going to be the nominee. ballots are already being cast in states. In fact, I was an early voter, so my vote has already been cast, or my ballot has already been cast. So he's going to be the nominee.
All right, and there's nothing that they can do to change it for all the talk about, this emergency crisis?
Look, Judge, this is one of the most unusual elections we've had, so we still got 30 days. You never know what's going to happen. But he's going to be our nominee.
Okay. All right. David Avella, thanks so much for being with us tonight. And my next guest was a Bernie Sanders supporter who vowed not to vote for Hillary Clinton and instead join the Trump train. Democratic strategist Harlan Hills joins me now from New York. Good evening, Harlan.
Thanks for having me.
All right, Harlan, what's your take, first of all, on the comments that were leaked last night by Donald Trump?
Well, without a doubt, they're disgusting, and I can't defend them, and neither can Donald Trump. I mean, he's owned up to the fact that he shouldn't have said them, and he regrets it.
Oh, all right. And what do you think? Let's talk about the WikiLeaks and the fact that, everything that Sanders was saying seems to be true. That, the Democratic Convention and the Democratic National Committee was rigging it to make sure that Hillary won. And now we find out that those speeches that she made, that she refused to release on Wall Street, were just as Bernie said. She was saying, oh, we need Wall Street to take care of and reform Wall Street. And will that change anyone's vote from Hillary to Donald?
Well, unfortunately, at this point, I think everybody's so distracted by the hysterics of this tape, and the media is certainly not covering it. But the WikiLeaks are a window into who the true Hillary Clinton is. Look, she said in the emails and in speeches that were paid for that she wanted a common market across the hemisphere, that she wanted open borders. She said that, you need to have a public take on issues and a private take on issues because people can't handle the truth. And this is what we know about Hillary Clinton, and we've actually got confirmation now. And I think that there's a lot of revelation to be seen there, but the media won't cover this one bit.
Okay, but what about the fact that Hillary Clinton is saying right now that that Donald Trump cannot be president, that he's this horrific person? I mean, how does she explain to the American people tomorrow night in the debate, and can she convince people that this is a man who's not worthy of being president?
Look, Hillary Clinton's not winning any votes at this point. The facts remain that she has a 30-year track record of lies, deceit, and fraud. The facts remain that she put national security behind her own political expedience when she sent private and confidential emails on an unsecure server. The facts remain that she's a serial enabler of a sexual predator, her husband, who has victims that she has just time and time again tried to suppress. I mean, there's a long list from Juanita Broderick to Wellstone. So, I mean, look, you can look this up on the internet. The media won't cover this one bit, but there's actually even a dedicated Wikipedia page on Bill Clinton's victims. So this is well documented, it's cited, and I just cannot understand why people are focusing on Donald Trump's words when Bill Clinton and Hillary Clinton's actions are far worse.
Well, I think, you know what, Harlan, I think David Avella was very right. He said it's like tabloid politics, and it's a tabloid world right now. But with respect to Bernie Sanders and his supporters, I can't believe that given everything that Bernie said, and Bernie was right about most of it, that the Bernie Sanders supporters, if they were going to stay home, might not now say, you know what, she's worse than even Bernie said she was. She says now that she dreams of a hemispheric global market, open trade, open borders, when she's speaking in Brazil at a Brazilian bank. I mean, she'll say anything to anybody. That's not motivating people, or is it even getting enough attention to motivate people?
At best, I have to be honest with you, I think that Bernie Sanders supporters will stay home. And that's actually a positive for Donald Trump. And so with each revelation that comes back and confirms what we know about Hillary Clinton, I think that's actually a net positive. Because we know what we're going to get with Hillary Clinton, which is more Obamonomics, which have gutted the middle class, more Obamonomics, which have gutted millennials like myself. We're going to get more taxes, more regulation. We're going to have a nuclear Iran. I mean, the list goes on and on and on. And so I don't think that she's going to win any new supporters at this point. But unfortunately, with all of the distractions, I don't think Donald Trump is either. That's my concern.
Harlan Hill, thanks so much.
Thank you.
All right. And we've heard from the politicians, the pundits, but what do real voters think about Trump's comments? Up next, one of our favorites, Scott Baio, is standing by live to tell me what he makes of all of this. And we may even talk a little Hillary. Charles in charge and on deck next. Welcome back to Justice. Actor Scott Baio made big news when he first endorsed Donald Trump on Justice, this show, earlier this year. Since then, Scott and I have been to Trump Tower, where Scott got to meet Donald Trump, his candidate, and he even spoke with the Republican National Convention. Scott Baio joins me now. Good evening, Scott.
Hey, Judge. Always good to be with you.
Thanks. Good to have you here. All right. Now, I remember specifically you said that one of the reasons that you supported Donald Trump is because he spoke like a regular guy. Do you think what he said or what was released from 11 years ago is that kind of stuff?
Absolutely. First of all, I think 11 years ago, Trump was a Democrat, so doesn't he deserve a pass? Just throwing that out there. I like Trump because Trump is not a politician. He talks like a guy. And ladies out there, this is what guys talk about when you're not around. So if you're offended by it, grow up. Okay? And by the way, this is what you guys talk about over white wine when you have your brunches. So take it easy with your phony outrage.
I don't talk like
this is
that,
the way the
Scott.
world works. It's not a big thing. Yes, sorry. Go ahead, Judge.
Okay, but you know what, Scott? Here's the thing. People aren't used to hearing that, having an audio, listening to it.
I know.
But what shocks me is that I know this is frat house stuff. I know that this is locker room, football locker room talk. But, you know, when I hear, like, senators and congressmen, some of whom have actually played football, saying they're outraged, none of us like that language, but they do use it. And I'm not defending him in that regard. I think it's horrific. But at the end of the day, this is the kind of thing that is not unusual for guys. But how does Donald Trump convince women that he needs to win this election, that he's not a pig?
By saying, I'm a guy. This is how we talk. Listen, you could not like the way I talk when I'm with my buddies, but you better like the way I'm going to fix stuff, because my opponent is going to wreck the country. Open borders, says one thing to banks and speeches, says other things to the country. I mean, lies about everything. I don't know what else to say about this woman. She defends her husband, who was allegedly abusing women for I don't even know how long, a quarter of a century, and then she tries to destroy those women, calling them bimbos. So, you know, what do we want here? If you're going to accept that she's defending her husband and going after these bimbos that she calls them, then you're going to have to accept Trump for being a guy.
Okay. You know, I get the feeling, Scott, that she may feel badly that she lost your vote. And I want you to listen to this sound for a minute.
Any regrets over losing the Scott Baio vote?
Not a one.
So it wasn't heartbreaking that
No.
Yeah, but Chachi, I mean, who's going to be next?
You know what, Scott? I got to tell you, when I heard that, I was delighted. I said to myself, you know what? I think that one stung. What do you think?
Oh, I thought it was very funny, although I'm a little concerned that I'm on the Clinton radar screen, because people that disagree with her tend to disappear.
Disappear. Well, you know what? That probably makes at least two of us here. But you know what? This is really about standing up and saying what it is that you believe in. What do you want to hear Donald Trump say tomorrow night?
Well, I know it's going to happen. I know that it's going to be 3 against 1. So I think he's, first of all, everybody is redeemable except Trump. And Paul Ryan, in my opinion, is a punk. He's always been a punk, and he was just looking for a way out. He's a punk. But tomorrow night they're going to say, hey, Mr. Trump, remember when you killed that person on Fifth Avenue with a bazooka? And he should say, yeah, right, okay, listen, here's how I'm going to fix the economy. Remember when you smacked your mother in the mouth 50 times when you were a little boy? Right, that's what I did too. Okay, here's what I'm going to do about the border. And remember when you did, it's going to be, and Hillary, who makes your pantsuits? So I think that he's going to have to be prepared for this barrage of I don't even know what the word is, hate or attack, and just deflect it and go right to what he wants to talk about, because they don't want to talk about issues, Judge. They lose when they talk about issues.
Right. She's never talked about what she's going to do other than getting more intelligence to fight ISIS. Anyway, Scott Baio, thanks so much for being with us tonight.
Thanks, Judge. Always good to see you.
Good to see you. And next, I hit the books and head back to school. Street Justice, moments away. Donald Trump vowing today that he will never drop out of the race, even amid growing calls from some members of the GOP to do so. Joining me now for reaction, Dr. Robert Jeffress, a member of Trump's Faith Advisory Council and also a Fox News contributor. All right, good evening, Pastor. How do you possibly continue to support Donald Trump after the latest audio leak?
Look, make no mistake about it, Judge. His comments were crude, they were offensive, and they are indefensible, but they're still not enough to make me vote for Hillary Clinton. I mean, we need to put this in perspective. Last week, I was at Trump Tower, and I moderated a meeting between Mr. Trump and religious leaders. And while he was seated to my left, I said, look, I would probably not choose Trump to be a Sunday school teacher in my church, but that's not what this election is about. We are looking for a leader who can reverse the downward death spiral this nation is in, and I still believe Donald Trump is the best person to do that, in spite of the comments, yes, awful comments, he made 11 years ago, and by the way, for which he has apologized.
Let me ask you this, Pastor. You know, I suspect, and they talk about this a lot in presidential elections, this is some October surprise. But I suspect that there may be other comments that are going to be leaked as WikiLeaks, and this is just my conclusion, as the WikiLeaks continue to pour out. Julian Assange says we've got even more WikiLeaks, which I'll talk about a little later in the show. But what do you say to other evangelicals? I mean, you may feel that, Donald is the best person to run the country, but what about those evangelicals, who've never talked like this or heard these kinds of words?
Well, I don't talk like that, but we all are sinners. Everybody's a sinner, the Bible says. We all need God's forgiveness, and God is able to forgive anyone who asks. But I am, Judge, having a lot of conversations right now with evangelical leaders, and they say, well, Robert, what about character? Doesn't character count? And I say, of course it does. But you're presupposing Hillary Clinton has a superior character to Donald Trump. Here is a woman, Judge, who has deleted 33,000 emails. She has attacked the women who were sexually assaulted by her husband, and she supports the dismembering of babies in the womb through partial birth abortion. That is hardly sterling character. To me, that is the height of immorality.
What do you think that Donald Trump needs to do tomorrow night at this debate? And, how can he overcome, this issue with those who are so offended that they don't even want to vote?
Look, I think he needs to, most of all, and first of all, show genuine contrition and say what he did last night, Judge. He said, this is not the man I am. And by the way, I can testify to that. I've been around him the last year in a number of situations with his family. I've watched him interact with Melania and the children. My wife and I have been with him on several occasions. He is nothing except respectful toward women and toward others. The Donald Trump I know today is not the Donald Trump that was in those tapes 11 years ago. And I think he needs to keep saying what he did last night. I am a changed person, and as your president, I will never do anything to embarrass you.
And Pastor, Hillary Clinton, if she continues to, paint Donald Trump as this kind of person, and I believe that that the debate last week and the reference to Machado was just the tee up for this, so it would look like a cumulative thing. Do you think that she continues to do this kind of thing, and can she turn evangelicals around?
she will never turn the majority of evangelicals toward her. Donald Trump is the only pro-life, pro-religious liberty, pro-conservative justices for the Supreme Court candidate that we have. And by the way, that's what this election is about for conservative Christians, Judge. It's about the Supreme Court. The next president will select or nominate 2 or 3 justices who will shape this nation for generations. And we need justices who will interpret the law using the Constitution and not political correctness. And I just remind my conservative friends, don't lose focus about what this election is about. It's about the Supreme Court and the future of our country.
All right, Pastor Robert Jeffries, thanks so much for being with us. And, I look forward to talking to you again. Thanks.
Thanks, Judge.
Now, Dr. Jeffries may not agree, but some people are calling on Donald Trump to step aside. But how would that even work at this stage of the game? David Avella is standing by live to talk about that, as well as Trump's chances of surviving the latest storm. And later,
if it was a male who was smiling, we wouldn't be focusing on as much. We're focusing on...
Do you really believe that?
Yes, I do.
Come on, get past it. And I debate the debaters. I'll head to St. John's University and ask the Debate Society if they can offer any tips to Donald Trump and Hillary Clinton. You can't miss Street Justice tonight. For this week's Street Justice, I went back to school. I visited the campus of St. John's University in New York City and asked the school's Debate Society if they could offer any tips to the candidates for tomorrow night's debate. We're having another presidential debate tomorrow night in St. Louis. What would you tell Hillary? And what would you tell Donald Trump?
They really need to zone in on their technique. They are in front of a national audience, and that this is important. And then the people do look at their facial expressions, and that does matter.
Hillary, I'd tell her to continue focusing on policy, which she's been doing, but I'd also tell her that she needs to show the American people more. What are you going to do to help us? What are your exact stances on the issues?
I think they also need to focus on maybe the composure and how they can also hold themselves to a higher standard, because they are our presidential candidates.
The most important thing is about policy. So instead of going on to each other about their personal problems they had in the past, they should focus on about explaining their game plan in order to run the country.
Their facial expressions in some way kind of show their humanity, and just that they're normal people like us, and that they have responses to these to what they hear.
What should they have talked about?
We want to hear more about their policies, not attacks against each other. So when they talk about, for us, because we're college students, when they talk about why we don't want college students to be in debt.
Where are they going to get the money for that, by the way?
We'll have to see.
I would kill to take this course. I really would. Why was Hillary smiling when she was being criticized by Donald?
If it was a male and he was smiling, we wouldn't be focusing on as much. We're focusing on...
Do you really believe that?
Yes, I do.
Come on, get past it.
I do believe that.
We used to see the stereotypes of a man-to-man debate, but now we're watching a male against a female debate.
I'm over the gender thing.
One thing that I definitely think was a problem was the interruptions. I think, especially in...
Whose interruptions?
Everyone's. I think.
So is the moderator at fault? If somebody's interrupting you, what do you do?
I think when the moderator interrupts the debaters, it's for a purpose. She's making sure that they're answering the question and making sure that they're getting out the information that the people want to hear, versus when the candidates are interrupting each other, it's really taking away from the debate.
The problem is we've allowed this debate behavior to go on for too long that now...
Oh, baloney! That you got a strong moderator, they're going to stop it, period.
Bringing up all these personal attacks isn't very good for the debate in general, because we want to know about policies. We don't want to know about your personal history.
What would you tell them going into the next debate tomorrow night in St. Louis?
Donald Trump has to become more prepared than he was. Clinton has a much easier path to 270 votes. All she has to do is to reach out to maintain a lead.
That's the expert advice from the Debate Society at St. John's University. They will be watching the debate tomorrow night like the rest of us, but I think a little smarter than the rest of us. Right, guys? Go St. John's! Woo! Woo! Yes! And a reminder, because of a technical issue, I wasn't able to finish my opening statement tonight. Go to my Facebook page a little later and you'll find it. See you next week.